Cultivation of Personal Magnetism in 7 Progressive Steps by Edmund Shaftesbury. Preface by the publishers. In this new book we present to the world our 11th edition of the work on the cultivation of personal magnetism. Many years ago the first edition was printed, and it made a profound impression on the world of thought because it presented a wholly new study. It had the field all to itself, because it successfully taught all and more than it claimed. It was eagerly sold in great numbers, as many as 600,000 copies, having been absorbed by the public in the first 9 editions. Then the 10th appeared, and our plates were worn out before we stopped the sale to make ready for a vastly improved and enlarged 11th edition, which is this volume now in your hands. 3 great merits have won this success. First, the lessons meet the mental equipment of the most highly cultured men and women, and yield to them unlimited pleasure and profit. Second, the same lessons are so written and prepared that they can be just as easily mastered by the unlearned mind as by the most learned. Third, owners of this system of training very quickly found that they could acquire personal magnetism and could make practical daily use of it, as if it were born naturally in them, and by its use could achieve the most pleasing and gratifying success in all departments of life. These merits were bound to make the book popular. They were bound to create in men and women the desire for that degree of success that should crown every life ere it has passed too far toward the zenith. Demands for the book began to come in large numbers, especially from clubs and societies and private schools. The sales were largest from the friends of buyers and never from our own advertising. It is charged full from the first page to the last with its own personal magnetism. Reading and rereading its teachings thrill and uplift the ambitious student until the practice of its teachings is begun as a real pleasure. The Drift of Life by Edmund Shaftesbury. Sweetly the morning sunlight, climbing the mountain high, poured down its gold beams slanting like a pathway from the sky. And along this highway gleaming came the spirit of one we love, our home to bless in this wilderness. It came from heaven above. Swiftly the day advancing sped like the sunshine by, while the glowing orb of heaven flooded the noontide sky. The rose grew wild on the mountain, the bee sipped the honeyed flower, and down the vale the lily pale nodded the fleeting hour. Gently the evening sunlight touched the horizon's bar, reaching the sea eternal, lighting the land afar, and down the gold beams slanting like a pathway to the sky. On pearls of light through the gateway bright, it passed to the realm on high. Asterisk asterisk first step. Sources of magnetism asterisk asterisk. Asterisk asterisk chapter 1. The drift of life asterisk asterisk. Humanity is hemmed in by so many influences that, from time immemorial, no real effort has been made to gain control of the impulses that run loose in the world. It has been, and still is, easier to let things go as they will rather than exert the will to direct them. We are all creatures of emotions, passions, circumstances, and accident. What the mind will be, what the heart will be, what the body will be, are problems that are shaped to the drift of life, even when special attention is given to any of them. If you will sit down and think for a while, you will be surprised to know how much of your life has been mere drift, how little you have done toward finding out the power that operates in animal volition, whence it comes, how it is lost, and how it may be utilized. Look at any created life and see its effort to express itself. The tree sends its branches toward the sunlight, struggles through its leaves to inhale the air, and even underground sends forth its roots in search of water. This you call inanimate life, but it represents a force that comes from some source and goes to some equilibrium. Man is a higher animal, and animal life is a higher vegetation. There are more millions of flesh cells in your body than your mind could conceive or your pencil could write in figures. Yet not one of these cells originated otherwise than in a vegetable, nor could it have originated but for some force that existed in and of the cell itself. We propose to call this force mere energy, and you may give it any scientific name you please. It has been named by various investigators, but the terms used do not help the student to understand it any the better. In fact, whenever a new book is written, the author, believing that his invention of a few hundred scientific words will establish a new science and draw all students to his feet, loads the volume with long and unbearable terms until its interest sinks with its weight. There is no place on this globe where energy is not found. The air is so loaded with it that in the cold north the sky shines in boreal rays, and wherever the frigid temperature yields to the warmth the electrical conditions may alarm man. Water is but a liquid union of gases and is charged with electrical, mechanical, and chemical energies, any one of which is capable of doing great service and great damage to man. Even ice, in its coldest phase, has energy, for it is not subdued nor even still. Its force has broken mountain rocks into fragments. This energy about us we are drinking in water, eating in food, and breathing in air. Not a chemical molecule is free from it. Not an atom can exist without it. We are a combination of individual energies. The plant is a collection of individual energies without the power to unite the forces they represent. Except in its general life, man is a similar collection with the power and sometimes the habit of so uniting the individual energies within him. But he has the possibility of educating and training this power, if we can be understood. At this step it will help along the work of the present volume, both in your understanding of it and your practice of its exercises. In the first place, your body, whether living or dead, is a collection of millions times millions of little energies that can never die. In the second place, these energies are separate and individual, although at times they act in some degree of harmony. In the third place, the human body is a drifting mechanism of life, capable but not accustomed to control the forces within it, except as habit, will, cultivation, or special excitement may marshal these forces to the accomplishment of some important end. We are satisfied from many experiments and from the reports of a host of pupils that this power of marshalling and using these energies can be, in every person, cultivated to a high degree. To do so much as this, the pupil must study and practice. You drift day after day. The air, sunlight, food, and water you take are agents of a force that comes from the sky and earth. You idly float upon the tide of circumstances to make up your day's life, and the opportunities of being something better than you are drift beyond your reach and pass away. There are three classes of persons who will undertake the study of this work and the performance of the exercises. First, those who through curiosity or as incredulous investigators pursue the study with hesitation and indifference. Second, those who commence with enormous zeal and determination to succeed and devote every spare moment to it for a few days or weeks, and then suddenly cool off. This is a large class, and they have had their ardor as suddenly cool off in 100 other undertakings before. Third, those who commence deliberately and work and wait patiently, plodding along in the dark for some time but persisting until the light dawns upon them. When the light does come, it seems to break all at once. They possess that rare faculty called application. The last named class will achieve success. The other two will accomplish something of value in every minute they devote to it. Out of the very many exercises of the book, there is not one which is not of great value. When the subject was first being systematized for study, there was no intention to connect it in any way with benefits to the health. But it was found that every exercise produced good results in that line. Therefore, while not claiming or laying stress upon the fact, we find the following to be always true of this special training. It promotes a healthy blood circulation. It invigorates the whole body. It builds a good brain power. It makes perfect nerves, overcoming nervous prostration. Asterisk, asterisk, how much time will it take? Asterisk, asterisk. This is the question that everybody asks. Let it be answered by asking how much time does it take for one who is naturally gifted with personal magnetism to acquire or to hold the power. It takes no time at all. When the singer whose voice is getting worse is told that there is an artistic position in which the vocal organs may be maintained in order to improve the tones by the mere act of using, he needs no more time to sing with those organs in their proper place than to sing with them out of place. This is the whole secret of magnetism growth. You will now begin to catch the secret of our course of instruction. Yet some routine work must be done. This will be found to be agreeable and full of pleasant experiences. Our earlier instruction kept the student down to severe labor without much relief, and while the progress was rapid, it has been found that even more speedy results are obtainable by the use of the natural vitality that daily loses itself in the drift of life. In like manner, each individual carries in his own body and loses daily through drifting habits more energy than the most magnetic man or woman that ever lived needs to give absolute supremacy to active life. The work before us is to acquire the most satisfactory results in the briefest time and with the least effort. Very recently, the author put into practice with novices and others a certain regime which at once gave the most gratifying results in each and every case. It was the first instance in which the energy known as personal magnetism had been brought into active existence at the start. Chapter 2, Fires of Magnetism. We speak of people as magnetic in a general way. For the purposes of the present volume, we shall class them as having for general tendencies the light or beautiful, the mental or thoughtful, the deep or dangerous, the rich or luxurious. Each class is as important as any other. We cannot judge the degree or quality of magnetism by the color of the eyes or the general complexion, but the character of the magnetic fire is more or less influenced by eye color, as a general rule, but by no means a universal one. The dark-eyed person is the opposite of the gray-eyed, and the blue-eyed of the brown. Brown is the rich verdure of the field over which the blue sky is spread. Gray is the cold zone of the north or the morning sky of the east, set against the tropics of the south or the night-laden sky of the west. Thus the four general classes are the completed horizon, the earth, and the empyrean. The blue-eyed person, when magnetic, is light, happy, cheerful, brilliant, active, quick, and even effervescent. The muscles and the blood express the magnetic force within. When unmagnetic, the blue eye becomes cold, the nature revengeful, the plans furtive, and the mind unreasonable in its demands. The gray-eyed person, when magnetic, is cool, calculating, steady in nerve and unflinching in muscle. He talks but little when a purpose is at stake and looks you coolly in the eye when you address him. You feel compelled to do all the talking, and he does not assist you by a word or a nod. His face never relaxes into an assent, and so you keep on thinking of new ideas and expressing them in the hope that you will be rewarded by some show of acquiescence. Meanwhile, he is looking you steadily in the eye. The black-eyed person is both dangerous and deep. When magnetic, the nature, the eyes, the expression, the grasp, the very presence suggest warmth. When unmagnetic, there is a nervous irritability that jars upon the nerves of all who are near. Spontaneous exhibitions of energy must come from the inherited temperament, and the degree of that energy and its success in dealing with others depends upon the stage of its development. Circumstances are educators of men and women to a far greater extent than exact training. The so-called gift of magnetism is always the result of some kind of education. All deliberate exhibitions of energy must come from acquired temperaments, or else the deliberation would be unnecessary. The acquired temperaments may be highly cultivated and are most easily assumed in opposites. The beautiful are muscular, the cold are mental. The deep are nervous, the affectionate are moral. The beautiful are magnetic in a muscular way, and only so when they are in their inherited temperament. Muscular does not mean big of muscle, but active of what muscle they possess. All beauty is controlled by muscular development. The flesh is but a mass of very small muscles. The contour of the body and all the lines and shapes of beauty are determined by the muscular arrangements of the flesh. The mentality of cold people has nothing to do with the warmth of the body. It is the steady, far-off, cold ray of an unflickering light. It is not excitable nor impatient. The brain, and not the muscular system, exerts the temperamental magnetism, and often with quick, unanswerable blows. In the nervous temperament, the motor and sensor nerves are all affected. In the affectionate class, the moral element predominates, not as a force of superior morality, but as the seat of magnetic activity. Asterisk, asterisk, acquired magnetic temperaments, asterisk, asterisk. Muscular may cultivate mental, nervous, moral. Mental may cultivate muscular, nervous, moral. Nervous may cultivate muscular, mental, moral. Moral may cultivate muscular, mental, nervous. As the truest, fullest type of life represents culture, we would rarely expect to find an accomplished person exclusively in his native temperament. Chapter 3. Latent magnetic energies. Of all the facts that operate to make our lives doubtful in their success or failure is the appalling ease with which, on some unforeseen occasion and in some unexpected and unexplainable manner, we yield advantages that our better judgment should have clung to and held in its keeping. In other words, we are not always able to take care of ourselves. The loss of control is not due so much to our breaking down after a certain amount of resistance as to our willingness to yield. Often our minds are led to think that it is the right thing to do. Startling propositions contain elements of conviction that rush us to a change of view almost before we know it. At the present stage of our study, we may regard magnetism as a central trunk of influence having for branches, each individual being capable of using as well as controlled by anyone or all of the four. Although his or her temperament may prevail in one only, in every created being there is an aggregation of individual energies left to drift. They furnish the general basis of power. When properly excited, they become concentrated and for a time are irresistible. So it occurs that many unmagnetic persons are sometimes roused, as they choose to call it, and show a force that had never been credited to them. The energies of the body that arouse magnetism show themselves very distinctly in one way or another. The pupil of the eye indicates the magnetic condition. When the energy is lacking or is held in abeyance, the pupil is exceedingly small unless the person is subject to abnormal nervous conditions. The most magnetic men we have met were accustomed to carry the eyes as though they were dead. The fire slumbered but had not gone out. As the magnetic fire is kindled, the field is lessened because the pupil of the eye expands. Under great nervous excitement, the pupil, black, blazing, and intense, drives the curtain widely apart until there is no trace of the iris and, consequently, no color to the eye. It is jet black. Some persons who are able to master the wills of others depend solely on this power of expanding the pupil of the eye. The beholder realizes that a change is taking place in the character of the face before him, but he does not analyze its nature. He may be influenced to a degree that leaves him practically helpless, yet he is not by any means put into a hypnotic sleep. Magnetism is a universal condition. Hypnotism is comparatively limited, for its subjects are few and scattered. It is not possible to hypnotize a person unless there is a tendency in that person toward catalepsy, which is a morbid condition of the nerves. We believe it to be a crime to induce the hypnotic sleep in one who has been in good health. The magnetic person may work in two ways. He may exert a depressing or an elevating influence over those about him. We prefer to teach only the elevating uses of this power, and we have often advised our readers to avoid gazing long into the eyes of those who seem powerless to remove their glance. The power referred to is not only natural, but is as common as anything in nature. It is said that a man who faces a wild animal can hold it at bay by a steadfast gaze. The statement is correct only so far as the man is able to maintain an energy of power in the eye under the present principle. There are, however, instances well verified where men have not only withstood the gaze of savage beasts but have actually cowed them by the eye, and this in the haunts of nature. The normal or healthful expansion of the pupil is always due to personal magnetism, and it may be controlled at will. This being true, it must follow that a magnetic person may expand or contract the pupil at will. Chapter 4. Human Electricity. For 25 centuries during which the world has seen the birth of its greatest generals, orators, poets, and philosophers, and has witnessed its most marvelous history and progress for over half of the years of the human race has electricity not only been observed, but it has been made a subject of close study, constant experiment, and scientific investigation. All substances contain electricity. This latent electricity is only made sensible to us under peculiar circumstances. One of these is the contact of two dissimilar substances, for instance metals. No substance, whether solid, liquid, or gas, refuses to conduct electricity, but all substances present a varying amount of resistance to its progress. In some, such as glass, wood, vulcanite, etc., this is so great as to practically make these insulators. Whenever electricity is insulated and not allowed to flow, it is called static. But when a current is set up, it is known as dynamic electricity. There are two equal and opposite electricities, technically called positive and negative. Electricity exerts an instant and powerful effect upon surrounding objects, just as heat does by what we call radiation. This influence is termed induction. Summary of important facts. We are yet upon the threshold of our knowledge of electricity. All the old and apparently established theories concerning this mighty agent may by a single experiment or a single fact be completely overturned in the near future. Every substance, whether solid, gas, or fluid, contains electricity. There is not a bone, muscle, fiber, drop of liquid, or particle of matter in the human body that does not contain electricity. One drop of blood contains sufficient electricity to evolve a well-regulated thunderstorm. Electricity disposes itself upon the surface of objects. Electricity held in check by insulation is called static. Electricity in motion or in current is termed dynamic. Density means the amount of the electrical energy. The best theory at the present day is that electricity is not a fluid or a substance, but a vibration like light, sound, and heat. If this is true, it is an important explanation of the phenomena of personal magnetism. Induction is the process by which another person or object is influenced. That actual contact or near approach is not necessary is clearly proven by the magnetic needle, which feels an influence exerted thousands of miles away. Chapter 5. Human Magnetism. Magnetism is induced only by dynamic and not by static electricity. Vibration of some sort is a great assistant to the process of magnetizing. The electricity of the earth magnetizes all things upon it. Scientifically, magnetism is only a peculiar phase of electrical phenomena and is not a different force, but its manifestations are more easily classified and popularly understood if we look upon it as something different, though depending upon and related to electricity. Electricity constitutes the chief element of the vital force of the brain and body. Dynamic electricity, and not static, induces magnetism. Human magnetism is the vital force at work. The vital force in a static condition is not magnetic. The latent magnetism of an individual is quickly awakened by the vibratory current of a magnetic person through the action of the voice, eye, or touch. The subsequent chapters investigate this power. End of the first step. Sources of personal magnetism. Second step. The enemies of personal magnetism. Chapter 6. Vigilance, the price of power. All faculties have enemies. The faculty of song has many enemies that are constantly at work, destroying its best quality. All the gifts and accomplishments of life are beset with influences that tend to weaken their effective powers, and the man or woman alone is great who can watch over them with jealous care. Definitions. Cultivation of Personal Magnetism. A series of exercises and regulations whereby the nerves are made subject to the will and are then supercharged with magnetic power. Negative exercises. That portion of the exercises set apart for the special purpose of removing nervous defects and tendencies. Positive exercises. That portion of the exercises set apart for the special purpose of supercharging the nervous system with magnetism. Regime. The daily conduct of the pupil. Internal energy. A certain power within which is able to direct the magnetic forces outward. External energy. The mere muscular action of the body which, when not acting in unison with internal energy, wastes the nerve force. Nerve force, an electromagnetic influence of a vibrating character generated by the principle of life and usually wasted at the surface of the body, but capable of traveling great distances and controlling any form of life which can hear, see, or feel, and more especially the human race. When so used, it is popularly called personal magnetism. Nervousness. The action of the vital force moving without command from the will or contrary to the will. Nervous prostration. The exhaustion of the vital force or an inability to generate a sufficient amount to supply the waste. Foundation law. All men and women possess personal magnetism. First grand principle. The least magnetic of the so-called non-magnetic people lose each day more vital electricity than is necessary to produce the highest degree of personal magnetism. Second grand principle. Vital electricity is the basis of all personal magnetism, but is in no way related to hypnotism. Third grand principle. The natural gift of personal magnetism arises from accidental habits that prevent the constant loss of vital electricity. Chapter 7. What the enemies do. Every student of these pages is familiar by this time with the negative side of the subject of magnetism. The flower garden is urged on by the planting of choice varieties of shrubs, the sowing of seed, the making of the soil, the stirring of the earth, and all that encourages growth. But even with every kind of care along positive lines, there are enemies that stand ever ready to nullify all the good that is being constantly done. If these enemies are not dealt with, the blooms fail, and the garden soon becomes wild. Most human lives are thus matted with weeds. Fourth grand principle. Vital electricity leaks from the body by constant misuse. The loss of vital electricity is called leakage. The person who loses vital electricity from the body is known as a leaker. Lesson 1. Restlessness. Rule 1. General restlessness is the most frequent cause of leakage of vitality. A person is generally restless who is uneasy, fidgety, squirming, or in any way addicted to irritating activity. When once you have concluded that such a man or such a woman whom you meet or see from time to time is magnetic, you will soon discover a train of facts, not one of which would have attracted your attention, unless brought before your mind for the purposes of analysis. These facts are always the same, no matter who the man or woman may be, if the charm of personal magnetism be present. This freedom from restlessness is not the stiffness of a person of awkward carriage, who braces himself into a fixed position and resolves to maintain it or die in the attempt. Relaxation is the basis of ease, polish, and grace. But it must be the relaxation of power, not of laziness. It must be the flexibility of great nervous tension and not the deadness of the grave. Magnetic people are not restless. Restless people cannot become magnetic. Magnetism is a charm, not an annoyance, until you learn to hold the body still. As far as involuntary motions are concerned, you cannot become magnetic. Chapter 8. Common Enemies. Lesson 2. Awkwardness. We have considered restlessness as the first general weed in the habits that count against the cultivation of personal magnetism. The present lesson has to do with awkwardness. This is something more than the absence of grace. It is not due to the erratic condition of the nerves as many suppose, for we have seen many persons, both men and women, who were so awkward that life to others was a constant annoyance. Yet each and every one of them was cured of the fault. Awkward people annoy others, and those who annoy cannot win. Ridicule will scatter the best magnetism ever accumulated, and ridicule is the natural fruit of awkwardness. A common French proverb says that he who excuses himself accuses himself. Never explain, never excuse, and never apologize are 3 rules of magnetism. Rule 2. Awkwardness lessens a person's influence. Rule 3. Defective positions, straight lines, angularities, and the misuse of the muscles cause awkwardness. Rule 4. Affected grace is artificial. Rule 5. Private habits become natural manners, good or bad. Lesson 3. Embarrassment. Embarrassment is due to the presence of faults and defects that are apparent to the possessor. The first step is to remove awkwardness, overcome restlessness, and build up a private life of good manners. Courage is the natural antidote of embarrassment. Lesson 4. Strained positions. By strained positions is meant the uneasy attitudes so often seen in persons sitting or standing. While this fault is akin to awkwardness, it is sufficiently different to call for direct attention. Lesson 5. Relaxed positions. This is another class of errors that destroy the energy of the nervous system. Relaxation occurs during sleep and sickness or fainting. Chapter 9. Petty Enemies. Lesson 6. Petty Physical Habits. Sudden starts, sudden stops, trembling, typewriting with jerky motions, winking, gaping, sighing, short breathing, halting speech, rapid talk, face motions. Lesson 7. Petty Hygienic Habits. Ice water, excessive water, sickish diet, stimulants, excitants of appetite, indigestion, pain, carbon dioxide, wet clothing, thin shoes. Less 8. Petty mental habits. Worry, surface thinking,